Welcome to another episode of Patio Pondering, the podcast. Today I have with us a friend and farmer from Central Illinois by the name of Paul Butler. Paul lives outside of Decatur, Illinois, and I had the fortune of visiting his farm in the past. And Paul's got a really cool background and how he had ag roots and then worked off farm and then came back, got to work on the farm. So I'm looking forward to this conversation that Paul and I have and learn about how his ag roots formed him and helped him get back onto the farm. So welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Paul, you live in the prairie soils of Central Illinois, but you work in an office in St. Louis, right?
I do.
Or used to.
I used to do a couple days a week.
Could you kind of just give us an idea of both what you do there at Express Scripts and then what you do on the farm and kind of how you lead in two roles?
Sure. I was really lucky and got into technology in the late 80s, and that was kind of one of those fields where you couldn't miss. And I got into software development and was a heads-down engineer programmer for many, many years. As I'm getting later years of my career, I inevitably recognized the young guys are a little bit sharper and faster at that and moved into leadership. So, and kind of circling back, I grew up on a farm. My grandfather farmed, and he retired when I was 13 years old. That was probably one of the hardest days of my life because I absolutely loved my grandfather and I loved farming and every minute of it. But my dad did not choose that route. So being 13, I wasn't old enough to take over, and we kind of lost all track of, equipment and, basically just had 160 acres of farm ground left in the family. So I moved away to the city, to do that software work. But always just felt this gap in my heart. And when I married my wife, we were 29, I told her I'm going to retire at 55 and start farming. And, I'm going to take a big gap here, but, long story short, my parents had the chance to buy 100 acres of ground right across the road from where they lived. And, the 160 acres became 260. And I just started looking at it and thought, man, I don't think I can make any money, but maybe I can pay for a tractor. So I told my wife when I was 35, I said, sell the house. We're moving back to the farm. And there was a little more to it than that. I was a consultant with this company, and they wanted me to convert to be an employee. And it was a pretty significant pay cut. And I kind of played a card there and said, hey, I'll do it, but can I work from home? And that was way before work from home was a thing. And it was just kind of I wouldn't say the dawn of the internet, but it was the early stages, and it worked out well. And they let me do that, and I was able to really blessed to start farming at 35, just at 260 acres my parents had.
That's great. And so what is your role that you were working at before you moved back to the farm?
So I was technology, hands to keyboard. Actually, at that time that we moved, I was still pretty much heads down, hands to keyboard. Okay. Just a software engineer. And right about that time, the project that I was on got much larger, and we had some leadership that decided to retire, and I moved up into being a lead and then a senior manager. So that's the role I'm at now, is as a senior manager. So I pretty much talk on the phone 7 hours a day is my job now. I don't really do any technical stuff. I do have a little bit of control of my own schedule.
Okay.
But mostly I am meeting with employees and meeting with business stakeholders and working out requirements and making sure that my software teams, I've got 5 different teams, are just basically engaged in doing what they need to be doing.
When your grandfather farmed before you were 13, were you integral in helping him? Did you spend time with him?
I did. From the time I was 5 years old, I was out there every minute I could be. I mean, that school bus dropped me off at home, and I ran a mile to their house just hoping to catch an hour on the tractor before dinner. So I was and as I got older, the last 2 years, I really got to run the combine by myself and do some tillage and stuff like that. So it's just kind of getting to that point of, really getting to do the fun stuff. But my grandfather taught me a lot of lessons. He taught me electrical. He taught me mechanical work and plumbing and everything. So he did do a great job on setting that foundation for me.
Where did you get your technophile tendencies?
I was one of those kids in the 80s that played video games all the time. And when it came time to pick a career, this is kind of sad. I did not understand that there was a career path in agriculture besides farming. I don't know, blame my high school guidance counselor or something. had I known what I know now, I would have gone into the agricultural field right out of high school. But I just didn't understand that and didn't know it. And computers were hot, and I taught myself programming because I thought it was kind of fun, and just worked into a college degree, and it kind of came naturally to me on that aspect of it. But I was in the right field at the right time. It's been a wonderful career. But were I doing it again today, knowing what I know now, I'd go into ag.
So were you working with Fortran, COBOL?
I wasn't quite that late. I really came along the C++ era.
Slightly user-friendly.
Yeah. I was never a mainframe guy. And then I really got into Java when it came out and caught the internet tidal wave there and rode that up.
Wow, Java and the beginning of the internet, you were probably having fun playing around with websites and crazy things like that, right?
We were writing browsers because there was only a couple of browsers out there. So we thought, let's just write our own.
Wow. See, I started out with Netscape.
Yeah, remember Netscape?
That's a step back. If I brought that up to my 15-year-old that's 2 stories above me, he'd like, nah, what? Netflix? Wow. So when you married your wife and you threw out that you were going to retire at 55 and farm, I'm sure she had 2 thoughts, and they were disparate. One, you're going to retire at 55, and then farm? What the heck?
Yeah, I don't think she believed either one of those. And, when you're 30 years old, 55 seems a million miles away. So I don't think she gave it a second thought. And when the opportunity presented itself there at 35, I literally came home one day and I said, put the house up on the market. We're building a home up there, and we're going to move. And she's a trooper. She says, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it. And she hated the first year. She was a city girl from St. Louis. The first year on the farm, I was still going to St. Louis 3 days a week. She called me one night and she says, there's something howling outside. And I'm like, yeah, those are coyotes. They're normal. To give her credit, the first year was rough. She made a lot of friends up there. She has more friends than I do now. And, we got chickens, and she really adapted to the farm life and gardening, and you'd never get her back now. She loves it.
Well, she went from a house 10 feet, 15 feet away from her to somebody that's a mile down the road, right?
Yeah, that wasn't an issue. What was an issue was that the grocery store was a mile away and the mall was 3 miles. Now all of a sudden, Walmart's 25 miles away. That was the learning curve, and I still get an earful about that now and then.
And the mall in Decatur is not like the mall in St. Louis.
No.
Well, you had to have a good foundation from your agricultural background that you knew you could do it, but then you also had a good foundation in your marriage that you could drop such a bomb like that.
Yeah, we had small children. My kids were maybe 5 and 3, I think, at the time. And my wife did see the value in being close to family and grandparents and stuff like that. And I look back, I'm so happy. They're super tight to their grandparents now, and we would not have had that had we lived 2 hours away.
Being close to grandparents and family is a huge deal, and I don't think that we as a society value that as much as we probably should.
I agree.
Yeah. When you were in elementary school and junior high, obviously you spent time with your grandfather. Did you romanticize about taking over his operation?
I don't think at 13 I was old enough to, and I knew he was going to retire. So I would have loved to have, but I just was not old enough to. And I think, maybe I believed a lot of what I read over the years, that farming's so expensive, you can't start farming, it's only for big guys to get in or get big or get out, and a lot of that. And, I think when it came time, when they bought this additional ground, I really sat down and I'm probably that first generation of what I'm going to call internet farmer, where the internet was available to me. It wasn't just the ag books and stuff like that. I could go out there and I could look on Ag Talk was a huge thing at that time. I learned so much through that site and made so many good friends and good connections. I'm not sure I could start a farm without it. I asked a million dumb questions there in Successful Farming page. And once I moved up here, I met some really great neighbors. I treasure them, to this day. That really just helped me out of the gate. What do you need, and loaned me equipment and helped me with stuff. So But that I did a couple of years of research, basically on economics of it. Is this going to work? And I figured out, yeah. And it's kind of funny now. I started out with $30,000 as what I had to start farming with, and I put $20,000 down in a shed because I thought I had to have a shed because I live in Central Illinois. I need a nice shed, and I spent $10,000 on a little Massey 255 60-horse tractor and a 6-row John Deere 7000 planter. I converted to no-till. That is what I started with, was that tractor, planter, and the shed. And I had my neighbors do my harvesting for me, and that's how we started. It wasn't not a big cash. I think I borrowed maybe $10,000 or $15,000 from Farm Credit for my seed and fertilizer. It was a pretty low budget by today's standard.
Wow, $30,000 for 260.
It seemed like a mountain of money back then.
Yeah. And I think about what my payment is next week. It's not $30,000. Wow. When you approached your parents about wanting to come home and farm the 260 acres, what was their reaction?
They were excited to have the grandkids home. They'd be like, Paul can play, whatever he's going to do. So, something else I should mention, we had really, really gracious tenants. They had farmed the ground since my grandfather had passed away, which would have been 20 years. Mm-hmm. And, here I come in taking it away from them. And they could have handled that any number of ways. And they could not have been more gracious about it. Actually, still good friends with them today. And we help each other. I've done work for them. They've done work for me. So I think it's a pretty good testament to our area.
That's good to hear because we don't hear as much of that as we probably should. Was there a point when you were doing your commuting and back and forth between the farm and the office that you said, man, I got to decide one of these two? Or were you blessed that you didn't have to make that decision?
I look back now. I would come home from work. I'd leave the office at maybe 3:30 and get home at 5:30. And I'd go out in the shed and I'd work till 1 or 2 in the morning, either, plumbing the air system or wiring a wired my own shed or rebuilding equipment. I couldn't do that now at this age. I don't know how I did it. Back then, I think I had energy and maybe just stupid optimism that,
stupidity. Yeah.
There was a lot of corn planted at night and, my weekends were packed. I still feel like we were able to, I coached track for my daughter, so I was still able to keep, somewhat of family life. But I think there was a few years there, especially the first 10 years when I probably did make some family sacrifices, time that I cost with them, getting the farm going. I think we got that back later in life, but, I missed some years there.
Okay. Was there a point where your bosses had discussion with you that it might be time to make a decision, or were you able to manage that the whole time through?
No, I've had 4 bosses over the 25 years, and I've been really blessed with 4. And I've been every time I get new one, I get nervous as heck. But I've been really blessed, and I guess the previous boss has said, hey, Paul has this weird thing going, but he does fine. And technology has helped me so much. I said that I'm on the phone 7 hours a day. And, I am, but there are times when I'm out there planting corn at 6 o'clock on a Monday morning and I plant all day and I do my meetings and it doesn't miss a beat. They probably think I'm sitting in the office. I'm driving a tractor. auto steer and Bluetooth noise canceling headsets have enabled me to do things that I never would have thought possible.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of things that we've discovered over time, and you discovered a long time ago when you were hybrid, before hybrid was a thing, that there's a lot of things we can accomplish that we don't need to do face-to-face.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's sure. My teams right now, I've got teams in St. Louis, I've got teams in New Jersey, and teams in India. And it's really, my day starts about 5 in the morning where I do stand-ups with my teams in India. So I can quit earlier in the day. And they're offline by 9 o'clock. So as long as I kind of get them going and make sure everything's coming along, there's not really a lot of distraction during the day.
Have you, over your years of doing the hybrid role and you working with teams in 3 different time zones, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've learned how that if we just give people some boundaries and a to-do list, they kind of do it, right?
They do. I mean, not everybody does, but if you've got good leadership on those teams and mutual accountability, We've learned, I think COVID was the real wake up call. A few folks didn't respond, maybe 20% at most, just didn't work well in that environment. And, just through natural attrition, they've been replaced. And, we've got teams now that are just phenomenal. There's not that commuting time that they have. Now we have gone back to what now they're calling the hybrid model, which is we are requiring people to be back in the office 2 days a week. They're expected to be there Tuesday and Wednesday. I am more than 100 miles from the office, so I don't have to be, but I do go. I go down Tuesday morning, I come back Wednesday evening. It's not a big deal. I'm away one night. And I just feel like I'd be a real jerk to tell people you got to be there, and I'm not there. After I did it for 20 years. So I don't mind. I still like the face-to-face time, but, it's not mandatory, from a productivity standpoint. It's mandatory now from a compliance perspective.
Have you noticed that you're able to manage better with the people being in office 2 days?
No, honestly, it's been a bit of a nightmare. A lot of the folks that were really doing well resent coming back to the office, and we've had performance degradation. Actually, they're doing worse coming back to the office, and it's as a senior middle manager, I guess is probably my best description. It's frustrating to me that we're doing that, but I don't make those big high level decisions.
Is it all just resentment, or is it just a disruption of their workflow?
It's both. Some of them they have now. They're spending 2 hours a day commuting. So honestly, they're spending. These were dedicated people. They've only got so much time. They're spending 2 hours a day less working. And there is a certain segment of the group that really, really just does not want to come in. They don't want to fight the traffic. They like working in their pajamas, and their own schedules. I'm not a stickler on, I expect 40 hours a week, but I'm not a stickler. If someone wants to work 10 hours one day and, 6 the next, I'm fine with that. You kind of lose some of that flexibility. And there's some learning curves and some resentments there.
How are you able to manage your team as senior middle management that you have no choice, that you have to enforce this? How have you been able to
So I try to give them as much flexibility as possible. But I do say there are certain things that we have to do. It's not a decision that I can make. I'm sorry, you're going to have to be there on Tuesday and Wednesday. Now, Thursday, your child has this event that you're coaching or working or whatever, or you have a parent that needs care at home and you need to leave at 2:00 on Thursdays. I'm fine with that. Just make up for it. So I try to cover it with that flexibility. Hasn't been 100%. It works for some people. Others, no. It's been the struggle.
That's made your job more difficult because...
It has.
Well, that sucks. How do you manage your teams in New Jersey and India when you can never be face-to-face with them or rarely face-to-face with them?
Yeah, I have leaders there for those teams that I work more with leadership than I do the individual teams on a regular basis.
So you are truly senior middle management.
I've got 5 managers that work for me.
Wow, that is interesting how you're able to navigate the challenges of how our workplace has changed. Do you think that your 20 years of you doing a hybrid set you apart?
Absolutely. I think it got me more. I've learned myself very well what I do. There are certain jobs I do well at home, and there's certain jobs I do well in the office. And I've learned to kind of tailor those. So I try to coach my employees on that same thing. Figure it out. Figure out what you do well. What do you got to get done in the office? And try to guide them in that same aspect.
Are you hiring many people? Are you part of the hiring process?
We were, but we have, everything's kind of chaotic now, I guess, in our healthcare industry. And we are downsizing for the project that I'm on. It's not unusual to go through these cycles. About every 3 years, we'll go heavy consultants, and then we convert people to them from consultant employees, and we go through an up and down. We're in a bit of a down phase right now, so I definitely enjoy the up phase more. I've probably hired 300 software engineers over the last 10 years in different projects, so I'm pretty good at interviewing.
Yeah, holy smokes! Maybe you should quit the gig in St. Louis and become an interview consultant.
We had a lot of technology field has, especially with India, There's been a lot of challenges that you would probably never hear about in ag. We have a lot of fake candidates, people that will interview for the job, but actually it's someone else with an earpiece in their ear telling them what to say, or someone actually completely different taking the interview, and then a different person shows up to do the job. Or the person takes the job, they don't know anything. They're taking the job in India for, I'm going to make this up, I don't want to give away salary, let's say $30 an hour. And they are then hiring someone in China for $10 an hour to do that job and turning the work in. And, it's a fireable offense. You cannot do that. It's immediate dismissal. But the things that we have run across are just hilarious.
Oh my gosh. Outsourcing the outsource.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's why. That's interesting. Never would have thought about that. Well, you got to give them points for being creative, right? I guess.
Yeah, we've had to do things like say, hey, take the headphones out of your ear, and stuff like that on interviews, or turn your camera on. Now wait, you're in the dark, turn on the light. Seeing if the mouth matches the words. It's crazy.
Oh, interested. Well, that's a nugget I didn't expect to get today, Paul. So we
expect to talk about that today.
What's the cultural difference between your St. Louis team and your Indian team? Is there one?
They work really well together. We're all technology people. We all have that same passion and acumen. What I will say is interesting, since this is an ag podcast, is that probably half the people that we hire in India come from an ag background. They are, we went through that growth here in the United States in the late 30s, 40s, 50s, early 60s, where so many people moved off the farm and into the cities. They're going through that right now. So it's very, very common that when these guys find out that I'm a farmer, we talk about it. And their farming is so different than ours, but we have that common bond as farmers or parents who farmed or whatever. And I love talking to them about it. I had an employee just recently who said, hey, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go back to India and start farming. And I'm like, what? And I think I was like so supportive. I'm like, this is so cool because, I did it. And he called me a year later and he says, hey, I need to come back. It didn't work out. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. What happened? And he said, the elephants kept coming through and destroying my crop. And I'm like, what? And he says, yeah, we put up big electric fences, but the elephants learned to throw trees on the electric fences and they would get in and tear up our stuff. And we can't shoot them or do anything about that. So in his location, he could not make a living farming because of the elephants. Just things I never thought I would encounter.
Well, that'd be a hell of a depredation permit.
Yeah.
We thought a bunch of white-tailed deer were bad. Oh, wow. Well, that's an unexpected rapport that you build with that team in India, being a farmer.
Yeah, we've had several of them come to the States and come up here and visit our farm, ride the combine. Some of them have brought their families. It's been really neat. And I guess I'm going to be going over there fairly soon. And I'm super excited. I don't think I'm going to get out in the country as much as I wanted to. But I'm really anxious to see their ag over there.
Wow, that has to be fun to have that rapport and that discussion with your employees over there.
Yeah, some of our one-on-one discussions get way off track.
I bet. Yeah. We this is scheduled for an hour, but it went an hour and a half. Oh my. This is going to be totally going on a different tangent. Do you have discussions with them about the scamming that we endure in the United States from India? The Microsoft
scamming in what aspect?
Oh, the groups in Delhi or wherever that are
doing like
people. I'm the Microsoft
hacking and stealing passwords and trying to sell stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I really haven't. The employees that I hire have gone through multi-layers of firms, supposedly. Now we get those occasional that sneak through, but checking them out, proofing them out before they get to us. And we have gone more to a model of employees over there, actually hiring permanent employees, than we have contractors. That's improved the quality. But no, I really haven't had those discussions of what that's like. I know there's those shops over there doing that crazy stuff, but haven't really had any that I know of that's worked in that or been exposed to it.
And I only asked that because it just popped in my brain after seeing a couple TikTok videos of the anti-hackers that got their cameras and watching people. Wow. I wouldn't have expected a farm kid from Central Illinois that is talking about farming with the team he leads in India. That is neat.
It is. It's pretty wild.
That gives you
I'd say it's probably, I bet, of my teams in India, I bet 25% of them have either they grew up on the farm or their grandparents are still there. It's a pretty significant percentage, almost like it was here maybe in the 60s or 70s.
Wow, that is neat. I kind of envy you having that rapport and discussion with the team. Obviously, you've got huge differences in society and the remnants of the caste system in India and all the challenges that got. But having that commonality of two people that put a seed in the ground and praying for something to come up is pretty cool. What have been the biggest challenges to you as you've grown your operation?
I'd say probably like anybody else that farms in the Midwest. It's just land, getting land. It's not easy to do. I've been pretty lucky. I grew from the original 260 there. I'm a little over 1,100 acres now. I don't have a single bank farm, so that's pretty weird. I have very personal relationships with all my landlords. Actually, tomorrow night is a landlord party where we all go out to a really nice restaurant. We do it once a year. And we all get together and have a few drinks and appetizers and a meal and have a good time. And I make a little farm video of the happenings of the farm that year. So I kind of feel like I'm running a little bit old school. I'm never going to be able to farm 5 or 10,000 acres, but that was never a goal anyway. But I do feel I have a really loyal set of landlords. But just that growth has been really, really slow. It took me 20 years to grow from 250 to the 1,100. So,
Well, just for comparison, this will be our 17th crop, I think.
Gosh, I remember when you were starting. It doesn't seem like that long ago.
I know.
Time goes by fast.
We started with 49, and we'll be just over 500. So it's a different area. So the largest farm I farm is 92 acres and 2 fields, and the smallest farm has 2.5 acres. So a little bit different than Central Illinois.
Yeah, it's a little different. We're mostly 40s, 80s, and 160s around here.
And it's nice when you've got a straight line, and before you had auto steer, your AB would be along the fence and be pretty straight.
Yeah.
Whereas mine, I set up an AB and going, oh, this is good. You said something a moment ago that you do not have any bank farms. What is a bank farm?
So I guess a bank managed farm. I've never really stepped my toe into that. I've never really been bid on them or tried. We're in a pretty high cash rent area. And my model of farming is really take super good care of the ground. I mean, treat it like myself and better. I give my landlords soil tests every other year. I keep my fertilities off the charts good. I've actually worked on tile projects, and we've installed tile on several of our farms. And I don't pay top rent. I do that other ways. The landlord dinners, I have several landlords that actually drive trucks for me in the fall. Keeping that relationship and that together has been nice. So I think if I was to step into that high rent game, it just wouldn't fit the rest of my model. Probably be a good quick way for me to go broke.
It takes a different skill set to run that high rent game than I think you have for sure. As you think back to those lessons that you learned from your grandfather, are there anything that stick out to you that you've used over your years as you've grown your farm from 260 to 1,100?
He absolutely always preached no equipment debt. And that's been hard for me. I love equipment, like most farmers. But I have stuck with it. It may have actually limited me at times, but I've always tried to just pay as I go. I've been really lucky to have an off-farm job for this whole time. It's a completely different game than if I was trying to make a living off 1,100 acres and put kids through college. We'd be eating a whole lot of ramen noodles and the vacations would be off the table. So most of my money on the farm to this point has gone back into the farm. Equipment, bins, sheds, stuff that, probably could have bought some land along the way. I've chosen to just stay more the rental route. But that lesson has never really left me. And as much as I want to do it, I've kept my equipment costs really low.
Your mantra no equipment debt, I'm sure there's times that you've wanted to invest in some more electronics than you already have, but that's held you back, right?
I'm pretty high. Actually, that is one of my big spends is electronics. Like I've got an all electric planter. It's a Kinsey 1631, 31-row electric drives. I've spent a lot on technology just because I think it helps in my productivity and maybe some of the other areas that I may be lacking on. I've got probably $100,000 planter that I'm pulling with a $40,000 tractor, which it seems backwards, but it works for me. So I haven't shorted on the technology. I haven't. I'm pretty much an ag leader guy. Some of that John Deere stuff is awfully pricey, and ag leader's not cheap either. But I do like the technology.
Seeing you and your videos that you share, it's really cool because I'm on the other end of the spectrum. We've invested other things in our farm, and the one video that stands out in my brain is when you showed the inrow steer on your 4640.
Yeah. Oh, the auto turn stuff?
The auto turn. And you were talking about how I can't touch the steering wheel and how hard it was and watching the thing spin. That was neat to watch you share that with everybody.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. And I think it's pretty cool. I mean, to take a tractor that's 40 years old and I put the quieting floor mat in and insulated the cab as best I could and put all this technology in it. And, it's a 160 horse tractor. And I'm pulling the same thing as a $300,000 160 horse tractor. And it's quiet. And I'm sitting in there doing my calls. I love that tractor.
Yeah. One of the few people that does like the owl cage after being exposed to something else.
I've got an 8300 too. And between the two, I'll take the 8300 any day. But the 4640, I can't beat the cost per hour to run that thing.
Yeah. Well, I've got a 7800 we pull our corn planter with and a Case IH MX210 we pull the Kinsey with. And I think back to the first time we planted corn with our white 5100, I pulled that with a 756. And I took the GPS, the old Garmin I use for mapping, and I mounted it, taped it to the fender. And put it, and so I could tell how fast I was going.
Do what you gotta do.
Oh yeah, it was funny. Yeah, wow. Integration in ag, in technology in ag is huge. But we still have that broad range. The bell curve is still a bell curve on adaptation. And yes, last night I was listening to a podcast with the Farm for Fun team, and they were talking about the graph of adaptation of technology, and you're talking about combines, and I forget who it was that said that if you buy a brand new John Deere combine, it has to come with a technology suite, that you have to order it specifically without it. That blows me away that it's just here. We all use it. Take it.
I was talking to a friend the other day that just bought a new planter, and he was talking to the dealer as he was picking it up. And they had a guy that bought a new planter and had a 2-year-old tractor, and it would not unfold the planter because the technology suite didn't align. And he had to spend $15,000 on a 2-year-old tractor so that it would unfold his new planter.
No way.
Yeah, that would annoy me a little bit.
Oh, I'd be a little upset.
Yeah.
I think we'd have to have a conversation about that. Oh my! But it's interesting that you talk about your $100,000 planter. One of my farms, I was planting corn 2 years ago, and across the road they're planting corn. And I was in my white. I've got clutches on it, airbags, and across the street was a 2-year-old John Deere $150,000, $200,000 planter, and we planted the same corn crop. And it's still a little pink seed. About the size of my pinky finger nail, right?
Right at the same spot in the ground.
We both went down 2 inches, and we both harvested about the same crop. Yep. So you being a technophile and adapting, are your gram drives on your planter?
No, I'm ag leader.
Ag leader. Okay, so you got electronic drives. You're on the adaptation spectrum of I'm going to grab it. Do you think you raise a better crop? Or do you think your benefit is that it's more efficient?
It's efficiency for me, and maintenance simplicity. I was running a Deere 7000 up until just a few years ago, and same story. This thing was probably a $6,000 planter, and my yields are right exactly with the guy that planted the same corn half mile up the road with probably a $300,000 planter. Mm-hmm. But the thing for me on that, I just really I wanted to get rid of the chains, and I wanted I really like I was with clutches like you are, and then I went to the individual row shutoffs, and I just really like. I do, believe it or not, I do have a couple farms that are quite cut up. The one behind my house looks like a puzzle piece. So I really liked the not overlapping there. That was probably the biggest thing that drove me to it. And I ran a 16-row electric drive for several years on the 7000. I went to this Kinsey. I felt like, okay, I'm just going to finish it off and go all electric. But no, it was just row shutoffs and efficiency is all it was. Mm-hmm. I don't think it adds a bushel, really. Maybe in that little bit where you're not overlapping into the in-row. It looks really cool, but I don't know that would pay for the electric drives.
You probably save a lot on seed, particularly on that puzzle piece farm with the clutches, but you had that saving on before you went to full, right?
Right, I did.
Well, it's neat what we can do, but we still got to go back to the basics. Got to get the seed in the right place, the right time, and pray that Mother Nature gives you some rain and sun, right?
One challenge I have having a day job is, and I've been in the same company for 25 years, is I only have 6 weeks vacation. So I burn a lot of that, and I do farm on the clock when like talking about calls and stuff, or in the morning or in the evening. But I really take about a week in the spring to plant, and then I'll take a couple weeks in the fall to harvest, and the rest of it we try to do a summer family vacation and doctor's appointments or whatever, mm-hmm. moving the kids to college. But that week long in the spring, I just really want to maximize that time. And when it's time to plant, I want to plant, and I go pretty hard. I look around now what a lot of my neighbors are doing, especially a couple high yielding ones, and I wonder if I'm maybe missing the boat on the liquid on the planter. They're really pushing the yields high. They're doing split applied nitrogen, which I'm just starting to do more of. I don't have liquid on my planter, and honestly, I don't want it because I just want to dump corn in and plant like hell. But I'm starting to question if we may have to look at that. And I hate to add another set of problems, orifices to get plugged up and another system to maintain, but if they're going to be out yielding me by 20 bushel, I got to probably look at that to compete. So I don't know. I'm on the fence yet.
It's funny you bring that up because as I planter shop, and you go to Tractor House, and I put in my specs for the planter I'm looking for, and I don't put on closest first, I can tell you what side of the Mississippi it is the planter's from.
Really?
Typically based upon the fertilizer it has.
No kidding.
And far west has absolutely nothing. If you see anything on a planter west, and I've got a small subset because I'm looking at white planters, it might be an in-furrow, maybe, but typically naked. In particular, Nebraska and Kansas for sure, they're naked. Iowa, a lot are naked. You get in my part of the world, it's more of a rarity to see a planter without any fertilizer on it. Okay. Which it's interesting, and it's just what we do. But you're right, it adds another level of challenges because those orifices will clog up, and you might get the wrong mix of starter. If you use potassium sulfate,
I got to tender the starter now as well as the seed.
Mm-hmm. But you can, if with your ability, you can size your tank so that it matches your fill for your corn. But it's still a challenge. But I'd love to see your experience and if it does increase your yield because we think it does. We can go on and we can row it where you have an orifice plugged or something, and you could even row it in the fall. Really? But we got a little different soil, too. We're not blessed with it. Organic matter of 25, and it's 25 feet deep. And
yeah, we're pretty lucky here.
So for my audience, can you explain where you are in Illinois?
I am almost smack dab in the middle, east, west, north, south there. And I'm at the south edge of the really high productive soil. If you go 20 miles south of me it's hit and miss. You'll see some fantastic, fields that are doing 250, 260, but you'll start to see some 220 corn. Then you go another 30 miles down there and, then that corn is maybe not doing 200 very often. And then you go another 50 miles down and then it's Southern Illinois, bean country.
They
But
raise
you go
corn
50
for the deer.
miles, 20 miles north of me, it's fantastic. So I'm on the south edge of the good stuff.
Interesting.
I know everyone thinks Central Illinois is all perfect, flat. I do have a couple fields that are pretty rolling. They're actually really good no-till farms. We do have erosion problems if we don't. And I picked up a farm 2 years ago. It's my first one. I call it Timber Soil Farm. And I'm learning some hard lessons on there. I treated it just like everything else. The exact same seed, the same fertility program. I'm a big lime guy. I always keep my pHs spot on. And it ran about 70 bushel below my whole farm average this year. I lost some money on that farm. So I need to learn how to manage some of that timber soil differently.
You get it figured out, tell me, because we're 100% timber soil. It is different. And you are experiencing the frustration that a lot of us in the Eastern Corn Belt have when we get so many things told about how to raise corn and soybeans, and it's Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, prairie centric. And you apply that to timber soils, and it means nothing. Like not needing to put on starter.
Do you have a deer problem?
Yeah, massive in a lot of places.
See,
yeah.
I generally don't, but this farm is near the river, as you'd expect. Mm-hmm. And I made my first 2 passes around the field. I took 16 rows of corn out, and I looked back, and there's about 30 bushel in the hopper. Well, it's hard to recover from 8 acres of, 4 bushel an acre.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
To drag that back up to 260.
Yeah, you won't. So
no,
what we're looking at is turning that into buffer CRP.
Well, this had that around it. I thought that was going to save me, but no, they still they hung out in the buffer and CRP. But they still ate the corn.
The deer got you. Okay. Usually around for us, it's a combination of deer and the trees sucking the moisture.
Now, this one does not have the tree issue. They've been taken way back, but there's a 40-foot quail strip is what it is.
Okay. So that's a bedding area right next to their feed area that's your corn crop.
Yeah.
We would make that a soybean wheat rotation. I bet.
Okay. That may be something I want to look at. That's actually seriously a good idea. I am a very inexperienced wheat grower. 3 years ago, I did my first wheat crop. And I put it on what I thought was my poorest farm. And we had 120 bushel wheat. And I did nothing to it. I just threw it out there.
Oh,
and,
my gosh. I hate you, Paul Butler.
and then we grew 42 bushel beans on top of it. So double crop beans. So I thought, well, everyone in this county is missing this. So I did it the next year and I put it on some of my best ground. And the wheat made like 80 and the beans made 32. So I don't know anything about wheat and double crop beans.
Well, maybe it needs to be on that poor soil to take advantage of it.
That's kind of seriously what I'm kind of wondering if we should be doing. Because I made more on that wheat and double crop beans than I did on corn that year per acre. That was my highest grossing farm.
And the changes in the RMA rules, you can insure that double crop.
We've not been able to insure double crop until 2 years ago. Now we can. Yep.
So do you know Dave Walton from Twitter?
I know the name, but I don't know personally.
Okay. So he's southeast Iowa, and he's raising wheat too, and he's in the same boat that you don't raise wheat in this area. So he's subscribed to a lot of the things that Paul Needham is promoting. What I like, and it's not very popular around here with my ag guys because it takes time, is split applying the nitrogen. I think that's huge, but it's tough because you've got to put that second one on when in your case, you're spraying corn. And streamer bars makes a big difference on the nitrogen too. So
yeah, our co-ops don't even have them. And I have a Hagee that I split with a buddy, but we don't have one either. So we have streamer bars. So it just kind of got put on.
Oh yeah. And you still did 120 bushel wheat. It's cool. Wow. So here's another lesson that in ag, there's a lot of similarities, even though there's so many things that are different. Like your typical corn, soy, is different than my corn soy. If we don't get rain, we got trouble. For instance, you could see the line north to south where the rain stopped this year, and it didn't. We went from 52 bushel beans averaged to 27 bushel beans. And it's a 10 mile
I
difference.
probably lost more bushels due to excess rain than not enough rain over the last decade.
The funny part, it's a farm that's been in our family since the Civil War. And this is the second year that we're farming it. And it was so wet this spring that the pond around the outlet, it didn't germinate. And then it got so dry that the beans around what drowned out died.
Oh no. Oh no.
So the pond doubled in size because of the drought. That yield map is just like a big old bullseye right in the smack dab middle. Yeah. But we can learn so much from different farmers in different areas when you got these little side things. Like Dave Walton's not far from you growing wheat, might be able to help you with some things. We grow wheat here on timber soils. I mean, that's neat that we've been able to build this network through New Ag Talk, Successful Farming, Twitter. It's pretty neat the network that we're part of.
It is. It's funny to see pick your platform, what you're on. And, I don't even remember, Jim, how you and I met. Was it through Ag Talk?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll see you out there talking on Twitter or some other platform to Corey Ritter, who's 10 miles from me, or somebody. I'm like, how do those two know each other? And of course, it's Ag,
Yeah. It was Corey Corn. That is neat. And it's funny, I interviewed Mike Pearson last week, and we were talking about some of his misfortunes and challenges with alcohol, and he says, have you ever heard of New Ag Talk? Like, yes, I have. It's interesting how ag is so big, but it's so friggin' small.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jim, we're going to have and I'm saying this on your podcast, I don't care who hears it, we are going to have a party at our house this year, the second night of the Farm Progress Show. And everyone's welcome. And we did one of these 20 years ago with Ag Talk, at the Farm Progress Show, and it's just so long overdue to do it again. I'm looking forward to see some older faces and some newer faces, and, everyone's welcome here. I'll put out some stuff on it later as we get closer on that.
I will, I'll put that in the show notes, and we'll put that on the calendar, because I haven't been to a Farm Progress Show. Ooh, it's been a long time. The sidebar, my wife goes to a little antique mall in our small town every once in a while. And she came back the other day and says, I got a surprise for you. And she's like something like, okay, that's great. Thanks. And she goes, here, got your coffee mug. And my first thought was, well, that's good because I tripped and broke my two favorite coffee mugs. And she goes, look. And it was from the 1989 Farm Progress Show that was held in Rochester, Indiana. The funny part was, my first wife, we were married for a short time, and her roommate it was on her roommate and best friend's farm. So I had the connection of, hey, Christy, look what I found. Wow. And she responded like, does that mean I'm an antique too? But the Farm Progress Show is neat. I'll share it, and we'll have to make the trip down to Decatur and enjoy the party.
That'd be great. I just love to see more, put names with faces and screen names.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, Paul, we've covered a lot of ground, and it's really neat to hear how your ag roots with your grandfather helped you in your software engineering career. And the nice thing about talking to you about software engineering, you're not a typical engineer geek, so you've busted that myth. It's nice to see that you were just a computer playing kid from the 80s. Well, I end every podcast with 5 questions.
Okay.
And it's fun because there's a lot of commonality in some of the answers, and it's neat to see when somebody answers differently than I expect.
All right.
So here we go. What is one lesson from ag that you carry with you every day?
Relationships. The people that I farm with is what I really, really enjoy about this field, and also keys to success. I would not be here without half a dozen people I could name.
Cool. I would slash it with networks, relationships and networks. Yeah.
Yep.
If you could have coffee with one historical figure from ag, who would it be?
Oh, that's easy. Norman Borlaug. I mean, maybe the greatest man who ever lived on the planet in terms of impact and lives. I would just love to pick his brain and see what drove him, and if he could know how big of an impact it was going to be at the time he was doing it. That's an easy one.
So you're the third and a half. And I use a half because somebody said I would do blank and Norman. And it's neat to see that. I've been to Norman Borlaug's home place. It's west of Protivin, Iowa, and I found it on a bathroom break when I left a customer call in Protivin. And it's just a white farmhouse and a barn. And it's a historic site. You've got a self-guided tour. I never took the tour because it's usually wet or snow. But it is neat to hear so many different of my guests that have different involvement in agriculture talk about his impact. And I think that he would enjoy the conversation with you in 2025 more so than you would enjoy conversing with him. What is one underappreciated, or we could call it quirky, thing about farming that people should know?
I think it's something I enjoy the most. It's just there's so many skill sets. If you're going to farm with old equipment like me, you got to work on. I kind of touched on it earlier. You're going to be welding at some point. You're going to be working on some electronic stuff. You're going to be plumbing some hydraulic hoses and figuring out pressures there. I don't think people understand what it takes at all. And I do like sharing that, but not tooting my horn or anything. It's just something I probably didn't even think about going in. I've had to learn a lot of stuff, and I had good neighbors and teachers to help me. But, I think that's something really unique. I can't think of too many other jobs that have such a broad skill set required to do it.
Mm-hmm. That's a great one. And I think about when I post something on my Facebook page and my aunts will make a response of, oh, look at what you're doing in this. And you're right. Electrical, hydraulic, and we do a lot of diagnostics because yeah. That's a great
marketing.
One.
My weak point.
I don't know if we'd call that a skill or a detriment.
Yes.
Handicap.
For sure.
What's your favorite tool or innovation that you use on the farm?
Auto steer. Absolutely auto steer, hands down. I have a low attention span. So the fact that I can text and talk on the phone and plant corn is awesome.
So I have to admit, I'm not auto steer yet. Like I said, we've made investments in other places. I'm looking for that on-track 3 that I could just throw in and
that's a great place to start. Your stress level will drop so much.
Well, and then I'm not harvesting or side dressing going, oh, there's where I answered that phone.
That's true.
And invariably, it's somewhere where everybody from the road can see it.
Yeah, always. And auto steer doesn't care that. I'm sorry to tell you. I still set the screw up by the road.
Yeah, that's always where they happen. And so the last question, to Paul, is what is one small change that could make a big impact in ag's future?
Gosh, I don't know what it would be, but it's got to be something to do with we've got to figure out a market for these crops. We've got to grow that market. The ethanol boom it's changed it so hugely, and that's kind of, I guess we've grown accustomed to it. And our input suppliers and equipment dealers have grown accustomed to us having that level of revenue. And we need something else like that. I don't know what it is. But.
Well, you're not the first one to talk about demand and demand development. We've got to continue that. In some cases, I think we're victims of our success of helping other people learn how to grow crops.
Yeah.
If we want to taught Brazil how to make soybeans, we wouldn't be complaining about Brazil making soybeans.
Hey, I'm going to back up here 2 questions ago. I had somebody tell me something recently that was really good. That it's kind of stuck with me. If you're going to be a successful farmer, there's 3 things. There's the mechanical, basically keeping your costs down by doing your own wrenching and stuff like that. There's the production. Are you a good agronomist, picking at seed, placing it right that? And are you a good marketer? You need to be good at 2 of the 3 of those. Doesn't matter which 2. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. you're a great marketer and you're producing big crops, let somebody else fix your equipment. And I think about that a lot. I don't know. I can definitely pick my weakness, but I thought that was a pretty astute observation, whoever made that.
I think that's good. Well, I think about our combine this year. We had about $17,000 in maintenance on it this year. And only 9 of it was paid. And that was, we've got a cat engine, and we couldn't fix it.
Oh, that's right. You lost an engine, didn't you? Yeah.
Well, that was year before last. This year we just lost the injection pump on a caps pump on an engine. But all the rest, I made runs down to North Star, Ohio to pick up stuff, and man, if we didn't do that, that $17,000 would easily be 25 to 30. And you think about it, some of those repairs we do are really freaking simple, but they take time. Yeah. And you think, okay, in my case, we broke it's called the stop sign on the rotor on the gleaner. It's just a big steel plate that's octagonal, and it holds a bearing in the middle that the rotor spins on the auger side. Open the auger up, you flip down the side panel, it comes off with 16 bolts, I think, and you got the bearing housed. It's really freaking simple. $800 for all the parts, maybe $900. I bet we'd have a $2,500 labor bill because you had to come, you had to take the time. And that's
a fear I have going into that. I guess that next line of equipment up from where I'm at is I don't want those things that require a computer or a high-end thing to diagnose it or reset sensors or whatever they're doing. I guess I'm going to be lucky enough to be close in my career. I won't have to make that jump.
There you go. Well, I had friends of mine that have a John Deere. I forget what model it was, that they had a fire that melted part of the wiring harness. And because they couldn't start it, they couldn't put down the pop-ups.
Oh, yeah.
So they had to go in and take the hydraulic things off to fold it or something and something else. It was just counterintuitive. Like, what? Why did it just... Yeah, sometimes it's nice farming with older equipment. Other times it's really not nice farming with older equipment. Great. Well, I always like the time we get together, and unfortunately, I don't get to Illinois as much as I used to, but I will now, so I can be there in August for. But I appreciate the time you spent with me, Paul. It's been fun having you as a friend in a cohort and contemporary in this starting from scratch. Yeah, we all had a leg up. You had a leg up with your parents in their ground. I had a leg up with some neighbors that said, hey, yeah, you can do it. So it's been fun watching you grow as I grow. And so thank you for taking time, and good luck as we get to plant another crop in 2025.
Yeah, thank you.
Here's just another example of how our agriculture roots set us up for success in our later life and make us adaptable in our careers, as Paul has shown, being able to juggle a career in St. Louis while he starts a farm at Central Illinois. We'll have more guests talking about how their ag roots set them up as we continue our journey here on Patio Pondering.